Welcome back. All right, so some news has been made. Dadonov, who was in Florida, not Florida property anymore. So if you're Florida, you circle back on Hoffman. Hoffman's now like the big name that's still available. I like Dadonov a lot. I like this signing for the Ottawa Senators. 3 years, a total of 15 million, so he makes 5 million a year, which is not that far off of what's being asked by Hoffman on a much shorter deal. A 1 year deal is what Hoffman's apparently looking for. So with Dadonov off the market, we'll see. Now for Ottawa, they pick up a guy who can score. They pick up a guy who seems like a really good guy all around, good, solid all around two-way forward. And there's really no risk to this. And this, of course, is the day after they re-signed Nick Paul for a 2 year contract at a total of 2.6 million. So for the Ottawa Senators, it's coming together pretty well. And don't rule out Ottawa being in on other players. They're one of the only teams in the league that has a ton of cap space. They have yet to get to the floor, although they'll get there. But Dadonov definitely ends up in that top six, solidifies that top six. Now, if Stutzla's coming in, if he's going to be in that top six this year, great. And if he's not ready this year, that's fine. Honestly, and as I said in the Panic Index today, I don't think that a lot is expected of Ottawa, but they're going to be fascinating to watch. They're going to be interesting. So, as somebody who's cheered for Ottawa in the past, and that may not be readily apparent from videos, but they've usually, when I've done a ranking of my favorite teams, it's been Ottawa's fourth. Now, last year they dropped, I believe, to fifth, and Florida was fourth. But moves like this, that's a good move for Ottawa. I like that. And so for the Sens, we'll see what happens this year. We'll see. They added Matt Murray in net. There's some good additions going on here. We'll see if these contracts these guys are signing, if a couple years down the road, a couple of the young kids are due, and what happens there. But in general, Ottawa seems to be headed in the right direction, which is good because for Sens fans, it's been a lot of bad direction for the last 3 years, and so you'd like to see some improvement. So yeah, we'll see how that goes, but I like the signing. This happened. This was announced yesterday that the QMJHL is shutting down both of its Quebec divisions until October 28th due to a COVID outbreak. So it has been multiple teams, and it was really getting to the point where it wasn't manageable. So I know that there's been discussions as well about how the East Coast Hockey League is starting up, and they're starting up one half of the league in January and one half in February, I believe it is. And so they're starting with a staggered schedule. There's going to be some creative solutions they're looking for to this situation. And it looks like the Western Hockey League is planning on getting things started in January. That's where they're tentatively scheduled to start things up. And again, for draft eligible players, for players who this is their draft year, this is absolutely the worst time to be dealing with shutdowns, dealing with delayed seasons, and potentially dealing with a situation where they find themselves a little out of shape. And maybe they don't perform as well as might be expected. The 2021 draft could be a complete and total wild card for that very reason. A kid might have a poor season. Maybe he develops symptoms and he ends up having some issues with his energy level for a while coming out of it. And so it makes his point totals decline. And there's some scout somewhere going, well, it could be what it is, but I don't know. We're going to have to pass on him. It's going to be a fascinating year that we look back on, I'll say 5-10 years down the road. And I think we'll see some 2021 draft picks who get drafted high that maybe they bust. And maybe we see more gems in the later rounds in 2021. It's going to be a fascinating year. I'll keep my eyes on all of that. Of course, the KHL is still playing through. If you're following what Datsuk's been doing in the KHL and you're a Detroit fan, you got to be thinking, you could bring him back, right, Stevie? Just try. Just see what happens. Because, yeah, Pavel Datsuk's proving in the KHL he can still play. David Poile, in an interview, has stated that he envisions, so this is his envisioning, that Duchesne will play between Tolvanen and Cunnin. So Eli Tolvanen is going to be given a full chance to once again show that he can play in the National Hockey League. And I would think that if he fails on this chance, that might be the final chance. But Tolvanen will get his chance to prove it. And honestly, if Tolvanen was on a line with Duchesne and Luke Cunnin and he still was struggling to produce and prove that he belongs in the NHL, they rightfully would move on from him, I would think, from there. But so that's an interesting thing with Nashville, as they're still being rumored to be in on a name here and there, but we'll see, right? Dadonov being off the board will start limiting the chances teams have to make themselves better. Canadian University, so U Sports in Canada has come out and they've canceled all of their winter national championships, which makes total sense. This includes your university hockey. It can't happen. You have all these travel restrictions, all these issues with travel, and for university sports, they aren't the big cash cow in Canada that they are in the States. So it is a lot more difficult for Canadian university sports to cover their costs than it would be for American sports. They don't have those lucrative TV deals in Canada that you have in the States. So we'll see how it goes for the Canadian university sporting scene. But again, the players are going to miss out on a championship, and that's a shame. But it is understandable that they would call that off this year. And then the last item on the board, Tampa. Tampa has a major problem. Now, nobody's put in offer sheets on Sergachev because I think the teams that are saying we would love to get Sergachev, if we're going to forfeit a couple of first-round draft picks, no big deal. We'll put in an offer sheet and we'll do it. But those teams likely aren't in a position where they can afford to make that offer sheet work, where they have their own cap issues. And then other teams aren't all that anxious to help Tampa Bay out with their current predicament. This is where picking up Gaudreau and Coleman, who have contracts that extend past this season. This is why at the deadline when they picked him up, I thought, but they already are going to have cap problems. Doesn't that make it worse? Now, you win the Stanley Cup, so you're the best team in the NHL. Totally understandable. You take that chance. But now we're in a position where they're going to have a really hard time keeping Sergachev and Cirelli, or maybe even finding a way to keep Sergachev. So Sergachev would be the biggest target for a team. I would think if anybody's calling Julian Brisebois, they're not asking about Tyler Johnson. They're not asking about Alex Killorn. I think you're calling him about Sergachev, saying, so you can't afford to keep him, right? And teams are not doing favors for Tampa Bay. The one narrative that I always hear from fans is, why are teams always doing favors for the Vegas Golden Knights? The reason is simple. Vegas has some good players on their team, and when they become available, there are teams that are like, yeah, we'll take him. And it's not to do a favor for Vegas so they can sign Pietrangelo. It's that Nate Schmidt is a defenseman that the Vancouver Canucks coveted. And I see, a lot about Nate Schmidt and how he was a really popular guy in the locker room, and he was a leader, and he was the guy that would organize team dinners, and he was, always joking around, and that'll be missed. And he was a glue guy. He will be missed. So for Tampa, this is an interesting situation where GMs aren't looking to take on a bad contract. And going back to the Vegas thing, I don't think teams have picked up bad contracts to help out the Vegas Golden Knights. Now without extracting a price in return. So Tampa Bay, if you want to get rid of Tyler Johnson, fine, but teams aren't just going to help you retain everybody. There are likely general managers in the league that look at, and this is something that's been talked about as well, guys will sign in Tampa for less money because of lower taxes. They'll sign in Vegas because of lower taxes. So you can sign a guy to an $8 million contract in Vegas or Tampa that might be the equivalent of a $10 million contract somewhere else. So as a GM of, say, Toronto, as a GM in, say, Montreal, you might already regard these teams that have been, getting guys to sign for less than market value because of your tax situation or because of other situations you might be able to afford them with, that they can't locally. And so they're looking at the situation you've dug yourself into and they're like, and? So there might be a little bit of maybe some resentment in there as well. It's going to be interesting to see how Tampa fixes this, because as soon as an offer sheet comes in on Sergachev, they're in even deeper trouble. Right now, it's just a matter of, if the season started tomorrow, you don't have Sergachev. Well, you don't have Cirelli because they're not signed. And keep in mind that if a team is not under the salary cap, and Bill Daly backed this up, you don't play. And I mean, I remember the first time that in an NHL game with the salary cap on, I had a team that was over the cap, and I didn't even realize it until I went play next game, and it said, nope. Okay. So, that's something then that for those of us who've been playing video games, yeah, we know that you can't have a team play if you're over the cap. Well, the NHL's come out and said, yeah, the video game's right. So if they can't get under the cap, if they sign these guys and go out of heck with it, you can't play without being cap compliant, and that's where things get really, really interesting. So what's going to happen? We'll see over the next couple of months. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.